Hello and welcome to the Business Octopus, where we talk about all things sales, marketing, and technology. I'm Avon Collis, CRM and Marketing Automation Specialist at Relevate and all-around good guy. And today I am joined by Ben Deverson from Lawganised. He is an operations guru for law firms and here to talk about the phases of law firm growth. Many firms go through a period of tumultuous stages when they're trying to deal with certain problems in their business. And Ben absolutely smashes the competition with his approach. So welcome, Ben. How are you going?
Avon, I'm great, mate. Thanks for the very kind intro.
No problems at all. So we were talking offline and we were discussing some of the roadblocks. You know, we're talking about getting a business or getting a law firm in particular from small to big. And there's a whole suite where someone starts as a sole trader. Maybe they've got a few extra hands along the way. But sooner or later, they come across some roadblocks. So what are some of those bumps in the road that stops them in their tracks?
Oh, look, it's a great question, Avon, and I think that probably the key thing about law firms is, and people will often challenge me about the concept of time and billing for time, and I don't want to make this a conversation about billing methodology, but one thing that is very, very consistent in any professional services environment is that the only input to productivity is time. So we've all got the same amount of time every single day. Whether you want to work 24 hours a day, totally your call. But I think the key roadblock really is capacity. And if a law firm wants to grow, it's about unleashing a bit more capacity. And that can be through obviously adding more people. So I often use analogies like Toyota as a factory. They have a production line with a supply chain with people and robots. Now that production line can only move so fast. If you want to produce more vehicles, you need to add production line capacity. The same works for a law firm. So I think that a lot of sole practitioners, as you referred to them, have this point where they reach full capacity, and a lot of that is inefficient time. And I will talk to sole practitioners about where they want to take their firm, what sort of growth they want to experience, and how to do that. For instance, through adding capacity to their business. And that usually comes through adding additional people or adding some technology that can support efficiency.
Well, I'm glad you added that last little bit, because two things in my mind come about is, you know, talking about production lines and manufacturing, that sort of thing. One is the quality or the speed that each individual task gets done. You know, I've heard horrendous stories of law firms still on Windows 7 with big, chunky, you know, CRT monitors that, you know, you weigh down your house with in a hurricane. But the other one is utilization rate, you know, making sure everyone's actually every minute that's billable is being used effectively, or, you know, being planned out accordingly in terms of time. Does that weigh in at all?
100%. And I think that one of the things we will often do is undertake a bit of an audit of how people are doing things. And sometimes the simplest of tasks can take a very innovative practice less than 5 minutes, whereas a less innovative practice, and when I say that, I don't mean that as a judgment. I mean that by just simply the fact they've been probably in a bit of a bubble and don't know what's out there, and that might take them an hour. And again, all these points of time and all this absorption of time literally takes time out of your day and out of your week and out of your ability to grow. And you know better than anyone that there is so much technology out there that can enable this efficiency, and you know, utilizing things like document automation or web forms or whatever you can do to minimize the amount of actual effort, because as a lawyer you want to apply time, skill and knowledge onto a matter as best and the most efficiently as possible. You don't want to be filling out paperwork. So there has to be a way that you can either A, delegate, or B, delegate it to technology, which is another thing I often say. So yeah, absolutely, it can be an investment in technology that can add that capacity.
And I almost feel like there's got to be some level where, you know, a little bit of investment in time and knowledge around that, how the technologies can help you, is a good investment because of the payback that it can provide. I think a lot of time, many lawyers that I've spoken to go, I need to be on the books, you know, focusing on, you know, some act or some, you know, contract rather than, you know, doing anything else. But it's almost like, I can't think of a good analogy, but, you know, like putting out a fire with a small stick when you could go and grab a hose, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Sorry,
Yeah, look, no, there is a significant return on investment that you can obtain. And look, probably the best example I can give you is a very recent one that we helped a practice with, and that was to use like document automation. So a lot of software, a lot of providers will allow document automation where a fairly standard document, and law firms are known for what they call precedents. And those precedents can be anything from a very short one-page letter to very, very complex and long-winded contract. Really, really quick analogy. We had a firm that had a very, very complex commercial contract that involved usually parties in Australia and overseas and multiple parties, that drafting, even with a precedent, would take around 5 hours. With our support through document automation, we're now getting that done in around 40 minutes. So, just do the maths on that. It's a little bit like, again, to continue that analogy of, vehicles. I mean, let's move to a Formula One car. The engineers of a Formula One car would trim the vehicle as best they can to find seconds. They want to find seconds per lap that make the vehicle slower over the entire, much faster over the entire race. That was a Freudian slip. Now, law firms are the same. So even though we can see in one particular document a 4-hour improvement in time, but they're going to do that 100 times in a year.
Yeah.
So through that work, there is 400 hours that we've given back. Now, you talk about the return on investment and the bang for buck. Now, if the average recoverable rate for that firm, let's say, is $300, again, do the math. So we've got 400 hours back into the firm's pocket. $300 an hour is, what they recover on average. And I'm really terrible at mathematics at the moment. It's too early on a Monday morning, Avon, but 400 times 300 is...
Don't ask me. I'm going to calculate it. It's a lot.
No, we're talking about 120 grand of time back to that firm, potentially committed to another matter. So that is the return on investment for just investing in a bit of automation.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes, a little bit of effort on like you can change the formula, as though maybe it also could be a lower wage person can spend more time to do a job, or maybe you can do it asynchronously, so at a different time. So now we're talking information in terms of manufacturing. So I saved 4 seconds on a product being made, and that worked out to an entire week at the end by the number of products being made. So that was high volume. So, if you can pull out a calculator, you can work out what the savings is going to be. Absolutely.
Correct.
So what, I guess, is the next step? I think we've identified some of the bottlenecks and some of the problems, but there's got to be, like, we're now talking about the outputs. What's some of the inputs that can make those changes to unblock?
Well, I think if we could just go back to the starting point about why these law firms exist, and one of the things that I'll ask very early in a relationship with a law firm is, what do you want? And do you actually have a plan for your business? Now, not many small businesses actually commit time to a business plan. And that's because as professionals in law, you're totally focused on the practice of law, and actually sitting down and planning a business is not something that many people stop and actually, get a pencil out and start writing it down. So we actually talk about, what do you want for your firm? Because as a consultant to the legal industry, I get a little bit jaded by cookie cutter consulting methodologies around applying a 16-phase project that may not suit the sole practitioner in the suburbs of Sydney who wants to grow their firm. So I say to them, what do you actually want? What does your practice look like in 3 to 5 years from now? What do you want it to be? A lifestyle practice where you work 4 days a week, you employ some staff to support the practice, and you have a very comfortable existence over the next 15, 20 years? Or do you want to grow your, what I call, to the Google size firm? Do you want to grow that significantly? And they're two totally different business plans that I would then help them write and then start to implement. So that would be another thing I'd be asking anybody to answer your question in a bit of a long-winded way, Avon, which is write down what you want for your business. And that starts with what you want for yourself. And then having that shared vision with your people, if they exist already, or when you grow, if you choose to, ensuring that your people know where the firm is going and how they can contribute to that. And I think that those things are really important to articulate really early. And then you can then start to apply the things that we've been talking about already. So the investment in technology based upon that plan and other day-to-day operational changes that you might want to put in place. For instance, how and when you recruit people, what technology you use to manage your business generally, what financial software you use, all those various things.
Well, it kind of hails back to the analogy I accidentally stumbled upon. You got to take that step back to, look at the big picture, do something about it. So that means, not doing the billable work. The analogy that I'm referring to is that, stop using the fire beater and go and grab the hose. You're going to let it burn for a little while, but you're going to have a better result. It's going to be less work. So, it's worth
Absolutely.
it.
And I think the other analogy there is that old one with the wood choppers who, one gentleman is sitting there chopping down trees and he's getting very, very slow, and he just says he hasn't got time to sharpen his axe.
Yeah.
And yet another gentleman beside him walks away, gets his axe sharpened and comes back and is chopping down those trees much faster. And you are right. You need to spend a bit of time to actually focus. And what we say is focus on the business, not just work in it. And that is a really important thing to do, not only, strategically, where I want to be in 3 to 5 years, but it's almost a daily thing, even. As professionals, lawyers can be very much focused on client output and billing and getting the work done. But, actually spending, up to an hour, 2, 3, maybe 4 hours a day working on the business. And I don't begrudge anyone for dedicating 50% of their day to developing their business. Again, assuming they've got the right structure and leverage and capacity to deliver their client, but putting a few hours aside to mentor others, build a pipeline of work, develop intellectual property such as more precedents, invest in technology, speak to clients about potential work or whatever. That's a pretty good investment of time in my book, even though it's not actually recoverable as in time ending up on an invoice.
Well, one of the things that is synonymous with the business plan is something like team culture, where they're going to do the work. But I think, whilst that's part and parcel, yes, the culture is that the staff are interested and they're committed, they put in the effort, they do things. But I mean, they're not going to do everything the same way the business owner is going to do it. They're probably not going to stay up till 3 a.m. to write all these little bits and pieces. They're not as committed. But at the same token, there is a culture shift that's required on the business owner, the person who needs to acknowledge that, maybe change themselves and the way that they think. That this is just something that I just sort of come to a realization of now. Would you agree with that? Do you have an objection?
No. Look, I would agree with it. I think that, there's an old saying that I remember when I started my business is no one will ever love your business more than you do. And probably that's an expectation setting exercise where, you can't expect the Sunday night contribution. But I think to pick up on your point around culture, and that is, again, throwing a few catchphrases around, again, something we say at Lawganised is that the firms with the strong cultures just do it better. And when I say do it better, that's a catch-all. They do it better in terms of the way they do their work, the way they absorb and implement change, and equally, they do it better financially. We do find that firms that are struggling culturally, one of the symptoms of that is that they actually have poor financial results. A good, strong culture has those points that you mentioned, Avon, which is, the people who go above and beyond. A phrase that I would use there is they've got raving fans. So, I say to principals, create raving fans in your employees, make them want to absolutely drive hard for you and your business. And they're the ones that are going to go the extra mile. They're the ones that are going to attend an after-hours networking event. They're the ones that are going to travel away from their family to go to another city to develop the business or whatever. And, that culture allows that to occur. People who are not committed to the culture, who exists in a toxic environment, for instance, they're going to be the first person to either A, leave, or B, avoid putting the hand in the air when the opportunity arises. So I think that working on culture and having a team environment that has what I said, raving fans, means that you're going to have, a lot of value being added to the bottom line because your staff are so heavily committed to your vision.
Oh, and it has a lot of like side benefits, not like, say, for example, making recruiting easier. Oh, I work for this great company, you should come along and join. Or maybe it's, it shines through in the customer service and, in the day-to-day operations in terms of the work being done. So in terms of, I guess, shifting towards the customer, how does the customer experience, or I say customer, you say client, much the same thing. How does that experience change?
Well, look, we focus on what we call the client engagement life cycle with Lawganised, and how it relates is that the ultimate goal is that through a strong team that delivers good work, that focuses on their clients with empathy and kindness and respect, et cetera, is that the outcome is twofold. One, they become a repeat client, or two, they become a referrer. That is the direct outcome we seek. And the phrase that I use for lawyers is I say, I want your name mentioned at barbecue. And if a law firm can get to that level of referral, get to that level of respect, then a lot of their work just continues to flow. And, there's, again, a number of fairly common understandings in professional services around, getting work from former or current clients is so much easier than finding new. So why not invest heavily into the relationship with current and former clients? And not a lot of firms will actually recognize that, because they're constantly trying to find new clients. But I stop them and say, utilizing the things that you're an expert in, Avon, client relationship management. How are you turning former clients and current clients into that person that's referring you and coming back to you all the time? Now, it's not going to work for every firm. Now, a personal injury firm doesn't want to see a client twice. I get that, but I want them to refer. I want that client to say, you need to go and see Avon. He's the man who can look after you.
And I think that's something that we focus on in the customer relationship sort of experience. And like even with your personal accident example, if they went, holy crap, they just took care of everything, they made me feel better, because personal accident, not only is every law or legal, almost every legal incident, one very strongly tied up with emotion and frustration, so making someone feel better in that moment could be very, very important, and also have a massive value. For me, one of our clients recently, their mother passed away. We sent them a card, some flowers, and they've just called us back almost in tears saying, thank you, I really needed that. And that moment is the thing that you chase, because now they're pretty much an advocate for life. Like, oh, you have to go with these guys. But like, it's not even going to wear off after a small period of time. They're always going to remember that. Same with like Southwest Airlines, they got stuck on the plane in winter and got diverted 6 ways before Sunday. But they asked everyone on board what they wanted for Christmas. And when they landed, their bags didn't come out. It was their presents that were already wrapped. The people on the ground had bought, sourced, and wrapped those presents for them. So those experiences really, really, pay absolute dividends. And what you were saying before about customer conversions is people are 16 times more likely to buy, and they're eight times cheaper to market to if they've been dealt with you before. Yeah.
I mean, there's some brilliant examples there. And an example that I use for lawyers is, and again, you got to be careful with the matter that you're dealing with here. There are some one of the things in legal firms, there's some very, very sensitive matters that perhaps former clients don't want to be reminded of. But I always recommend at the conclusion of a matter to set a task to call that client in 6 months. The simplest example is if a law firm is acting for a client who's just purchased a house. So the house settles, everything's done and dusted, and people move in. In 6 months' time, simply make a phone call. Hey, it's Avon. I've just given you a buzz to see how's life, what's going on, how's everything with the house, everything you wanted to do, because you're probably in the relationship during the conveyance. You might find that they're looking to renovate, whatever, and you ring up and just have a phone call. Now, those phone calls invariably lead to a couple of things, as you said. They remember the firm and they go, holy crap, Avon's giving me a ring.
Yeah.
What lawyers do that? These are the things I hear. Mm-hmm. And second of all, they have that chance to have that interaction and remember you. But depending again on the nature of that conversation, you might drop it something like, well, given you've now got this significant asset in your life, have you thought about your estate planning? And, again, be careful with the upsell, or you might have that at the end of the conveyance, which I know that a lot of firms do in their closeout letters. But it's just that ability to have a touch base or a touch point. And, again, it can work quite well, as you say, in those circumstances where, clients have some trauma, say personal injury, settle the matter, give them a great outcome. And then maybe in 6 months or even 12 months, just give them a ring and say, how are you going? One of the law firms I work with, their vision, they're a personal injury firm, and their vision is to get you going again. Nothing to do with law, nothing to do with personal injury law or anything. Yeah. They just want to help that person get back on their feet. And I thought that making that phone call 12 months after a matter just to check in, those clients often say, I can't believe that you decided to ring me. I didn't think lawyers did that.
Yeah.
And these guys wanted to differentiate themselves. So they do it. They make that phone, and they're getting their name mentioned at barbecues.
Well, that's the thing. Like, people want that human interaction, and the more human, and that's across the board. Even Xero, their success, they say, is making finances and accounting human, or making software human, like putting the reality back into these matters that are generally uncomfortable. So let's just say after a period of time, you get your name mentioned at barbecues, you become successful. What next? What do you do when you finally make it?
Oh, great question. Take stock and ensure you know what worked to get you there, and maintain that. Again, go back to what we talked about. Are you true to your values? Are you true to your own business plan? Is the firm where you want it to be? And another thing that I will see a lot of is firms that are quite niche, like I said, be it through an area of law, as we mentioned, personal injury or property or criminal law. And then they'll go, as we grow, we're going to add more services. Now, I challenge the firms that consider that, because I say, well, you grew by being a niche practitioner in this area of law. If you add these things, yes, they definitely can work. But buyer beware, caution in the development of this, because you sort of dilute your original intention. You can dilute your original experience. And to be honest with you, and I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this, Avon, but clients are seeing higher value now in specialists. And, your business is an example. My business is an example of being 100% targeted and focused on a specific product. And mine is to support law firms and only law firms. Now, I would have twice a month people call me and say, I'm an accounting firm, but I think I need what you do. We just simply don't support anything other than law firms. Now, I'll refer those people to people that I trust, and I think that that's an important thing to do, not just say no. But getting to the point of your question is being true to that reason you got there, and maintain it and focus on things like you said, culture, ensuring your people are growing, and then looking to always ensure that you are aligned to your business plan. And again, don't grow for the sake of growing because that's what you think is right. But if it's not exactly what you're after, then, put it in maintenance phase. If you want to be 10 people for the next 10 years, stick to that. But bearing in mind, there's going to be things like employee attrition and turnover. So you've got to bring in things and then start looking at succession longer term.
Yeah.
So, the old saying, stick with what you know and understand what got you there.
I think, definitely by doing the repetition, you can build templates, systems, processes, automations. And so if you are going to stick with 10 people over the years and the more you automate, you can squeeze more out of that lemon, or maybe it's not a lemon, maybe it's a tangerine or something more exotic, but you get the idea. And perhaps, getting a little bit more in terms of or the more specialist, the more niche you go, the harder it is for someone to disrupt you. The more generalists, you were saying before, in terms of what I'm seeing, it's what everyone sees in Google and what Bing, I guess. So on Google, you have a plain white screen. You've got one little spot to put in your search. But on something like Bing, you've got 100 different little icons. You get a moving background. The difference is that, and there is psychology in this, where someone that does one thing is perceived to do that better than someone that does one thing and something else, which is different from whether or not they actually are better. It's they are perceived that way. So that specialization has a marketing component in and of itself. And being able to, like I said, develop those systems and processes and automate and stay relevant and stay current. Much harder to do in 3, 4, 5 fields. However, there's probably other things that you can do to increase further your revenue. And we're starting to do this around courses and kind of like productizing. I'm not saying courses is relevant, but productizing in your niche then creates, or maybe helping others get into your niche could be another way to kind of further specialize that area. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, just to ensure I'm not remiss in saying this, and because I'd be hypocritical in raising the wood choppers analogy, and that is, yes, don't coast and don't rest on your laurels, because there are ways that you can continue to improve your efficiency. There are ways that you continue to be better, increase your knowledge. And as I said, look at different products within your niche and look at ways that you can continue to, as you say, squeeze that lemon. Actually, and I'll go with tangerine too. And just be better at what you do. And the idea is to continually grow. Don't become stale. Don't get me wrong there. But because there's so many indicators in business such as law where you can look at, things like recoverable rate per hour and all those various things. And then they're very sensitive numbers, because if you've got 10 people in your firm for 8 hours in a day, it's 80 hours available to you in that day. And if you can have a $10 increase in efficiency per hour, well, then that's $800 of extra revenue that day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ways that you can look at having more and more change in your business for the better, not for the sake of change, but to continue to improve your business.
Absolutely. So we've talked about a lot of things today, and hopefully our listeners have got something out of it. Absolutely appreciate your time. It's been really great having you on the show. If you're listening and you'd like to find out more about Lawganised, you can go to the website, lawganised.com.au. And as always, I'll put the link to LinkedIn and the website in the episode comments. So if your firm is stopped in its tracks and you want to get back to where you think it should be, then you should definitely get in touch with Ben at Lawganised. So thank you very much again. And if you're listening and you'd like to be on you can fill out the contact form at relevate.com.au, or if you have any questions, feel free to also send that through there or through any of the social channels. Otherwise, thank you for listening and take care.